So let us resume. Yeah, so now performance estimation, actually it is similar to the accuracy estimation, but with the different, the matrix known. Now here the idea that is used, it is very popular idea. It is called the estimation the performance of a classifier by means of confusion matrix. Confusion matrix comes into the picture because whenever you have a multi-class classification problem, even if it is binary class classification also, that which, right, that means which class actually it is, but it is predicted with what other class, that is also very important to know. So that is why the performance estimation is usually reported by means of confusion matrix. Now let us first start with the binary class classification problem, then we can extend it to the multi-class classification problem. So here okay, I'm not able to use the pen and marker today, so I'm little bit fine. I don't know what is the problem there. I'm not able to find it out. Anyway, it's okay. So here you can see my mouse pointer movement, right?
Sir.
Okay, fine. Now suppose the data are labeled with two classes, C1 and C2. And you know possibly the confusion matrix concept, which also once we have used while we are discussing about the statistical learning concept here. So here, say your data is with class C1 and your classification model predicted as a C1 class. So then it is called the true positive result. So if your record is truly with class C1 but predicted as C2, then it is called false negative. And similarly, if C2 but predicted with C1 false positive, and if it is C2 and predicted C2, it is called true negative. Now why this positive negative is coming here? Actually C1 is called the positive class, C2 is called the negative class. So that is why if you say it, positive class as C1 and negative class C2, then this one. So the record is positive and predicted is positive. So it is plus plus. Now here the record is with positive class but classified as negative, so plus minus. The record is in negative class but classified as positive class, then negative plus, and it is negative class and classified as negative class. Now here you see, out of which this is called the type 1 error, which we have discussed earlier. It is negative but predicted as positive. And this is called the type 2 error. It is positive but predicted as negative. And these are the correct result. So positive class is positive class predicted, negative class is negative class predicted. So here in this diagonal entries are the error entries, and they are the correct entries are here. So here few notations is used, TP for the positive and Tn are negative, means it is negative and predicted as negative. So it is called the true negative, and it is positive and predicted as positive, it is called the true positive. On the other hand, if it is positive but predicted as negative, it is called the false negative. Similarly, false positive, it is the negative class but predicted as positive class. So this way, TP, FP, FN, TN, these are the terminologies are there in the literature for performance estimation purpose. So you have to little bit, right, accustomed to this notation TP, FP, and then TN, FN. So true positive, true negative, false positive, false negative. This is easy to remember, of course. A little bit, okay, your little bit conversation is required so that you can get it there. And further, there are few terminologies, notations like NP. If total number of test data set is N, and out of them is P is positive data, right? So there is a total number of positive instances, right? TP plus FN. So it is A plus plus and A plus minus. Similarly, NN is a total number of negative instances. That means total number of record belong to class C2, total number of record belong to class C1. It is like this. And total number of records used for the testing, it is total N, capital N. This is NP plus N. So here also TP plus TN, TP plus TN denotes the number of correct classification because true positive, true negative, and total number of error in classification is denoted as FP plus FN, false positive or false negative. And if there is no any type 1 error, then FP equals to 0. And if there is no any type 2 error, then FN equals to 0. So it is two type of errors are there, type 1 or type 2 errors, it is there. Anyway, after the well conversed with these terminologies, then we will be able to explain the different metrics those are available there. Now, so far the confusion matrix is concerned, it looks pretty simple as it is shown here for two record with two class level, good and worst, and then the result is stored there as an entry. So first is true positive, then it is actually false negative, then true false positive and false negative, and then true positive and true negative and true positive. Okay, so these are the different entries that we can have it, and then total number of records being tested 10,000, and what is the NP, what is the NN, total N, all these things are readily available from here. Now here 99.34% the result, those are the good and tested as good. So it is 99.34% is the predictive accuracy for the good class, right? And worst record is 86.27%. And then total, right, observed accuracy actually, so far considering correct prediction, it is 95.52. Now you can understand that how we can measure the different accuracy, and this is actually the reporting of performance estimation. And you know, so the record with the good class are more correctly what is called the predicted, and then worst is a little bit less correctly predicted, and then true the observed accuracy is 95.52 is the overall accuracy we can say, and then the true accuracy we can calculate from here actually, right, using that formula that I have already told to you. So this is the idea of the confusion matrix, and it is pretty simple so far the binary class classification the task is concerned. But again, the same confusion matrix concept also can be extended to multi-class classification task also. Only the problem is that in case of binary class classification, 2 cross 2 is the confusion matrix size. But here, if the m number of class levels are there, then the size of the confusion matrix will be m cross m. Now it is like this. For example, there are 6 class classification problem. The class levels are C1, C2, C3, C4, C5 and C6. So we can draw the confusion matrix this way, right? And you can understand that how many total number of records are being used for this testing. All those things you can calculate if we can sum up all the entries those are there in the confusion matrix, right? Similarly, row sum, column sum, all those things can be also used to calculate the accuracy for a particular class level data. And also we will be able to report the predictive accuracy, the total number of correct prediction, those are actually diagonal entries. So here 52 plus 50 plus 6 and so on plus 24. And here also, right, as a little bit quick look from which you can little bit understand about that whether your classifier is good or bad is subjective assessment. If other than the diagonal entries, if all other entries are very close to zero values, that means they are very close to less error. Then only we can check that okay, this classifier is working well for the multi-class classification problem. Otherwise, quantitatively we can calculate all the accuracies, including the predictive accuracy and then true accuracy, and that we can consider it. And further, a M cross N confusion matrix can be compressed to a 2 cross 2 confusion matrix. And there is a formula, it is like this. So the idea is that 2 cross 2 means with respect to one class and all other class are other class. So if we consider a C1 class as a plus and all other data belong to other class level C2, C3, C4, C5 and C6 belong to negative, then taking how many are the false positive, true positive, taking into the true positive, and then all other diagonal entries, except this the true for the plus class, considering the true negative, and then for the diagonal entries, those are actually in this part, those are in this part can be type 2 error, and those are in this part they are type 1 error. So this way we shall be able to report the result of the multi-class classification problem, but with the 2 cross 2. But in this case, as you know, if there are 6 class are there, then 2 cross 2 this confusion matrix, there will be 6 different tables have to be there. Anyway, so these things actually for your if a particular class is more important, then you can consider that particular class, and then other class are the other negative class, and then you can report the result with 2 cross 2 confusion matrix. So this is the idea of the confusion matrix, and this confusion matrix is therefore can be used for many other result reporting. There are few more results, or it is called the performance matrix, like sensitivity, recall, hit rate, precision. All those things are very common in the literature and common in the field. So if anybody asks you what do you mean with the precision, then definitely you have to tell the answer comfortably. So here the true positive rate, it is denoted as TPR. True positive rate means with reference to positive class, how many have been predicted as positive. That is called the true positive rate. And this is called recall or sensitivity or called hit rate. Now, like true positive rate, there is a false positive rate. With reference to negative class, how many has been reported as false positive. So it is called the false positive rate. It is called the false alarm rate. So FP by N, which can be expressed in terms of entries in the confusion matrix, which I have shown here in the expression. Likewise, there is another called false negative rate. With respect to positive class data, how many have been reported as false negative? And similarly, true negative rate, it is with respect to negative data, class data, how many have been reported as true negative. So true negative rate, it is called the specificity. So now by the time we learn recall, sensitivity or hit rate, they are all reporting the true positive rate. False alarm rate, it is called the FAR. So very popularly called FAR, false alarm rate. And then the specificity, it is called the true negative rate. With respect to negative class, how many true negative. Now, there is also another very common metric, it is called the precision. Precision actually called positive predictive value. That means how many have been predicted as true positive, and then out of total positive class there are 2P, TP plus FP. So it is also called precision, and there is also another expression which is called the F1 score. F1 score is harmonic mean of precision and recall. As you know, recall is this one, true positive rate, TP by P, and precision and recall, if precision is denoted as small p, and recall is small r, then F1 score is denoted as 2 by 1 by r plus 1 by p, which is actually harmonic mean of r and p, right? So this is the F1 score. Now, so all these measures signifies the different fact. Now the precision, as you know, precision tell you that how many false positive are there with type 2, type 1 error into account. Precision, because A minus plus, it is actually type 1 error, right? Similarly, if you come to this recall is actually type 2 error, because A plus minus 1 in the denominator, it is actually type 2 error. So recall will give importance to type 2 error, whereas precision give importance to type 1 error. Okay, so that is why the two measurements are significantly not the same thing. They are different because they report, they consider the different, right, errors into account. And then F1 score actually considering both the errors into account, because it considers both recall and precision, both type 1 and type 2 error is into account. So mainly recall, precision and F1 score are three important metrics for performance evaluation of a classifier. There is also many other expression known. It is called the F beta and F alpha. Actually, for some beta value beta, and if recall and precision denoted as RP, so it is a generalized form of result when both type 1 type 2 error is accounted. Now F beta, when beta equals to 0 and beta equals to 1, it become, right, it become precision, and then when the alternative is there, beta is other value, then it is recall. So here F beta is TP by TP plus FP, as you see, when beta is 0, right, and F alpha, it become recall when beta equals to 1. So this way F beta actually includes the result of both precision and recall, other than F1 score, that is actually the harmonic mean of precision recall. And here is also another expression, it is used for FW. It is called the, it is a general metric, right? W1 TP plus W4 TN divided by all TP, FP, FN, TN is there. And for different W1 and W2, W3, W4 values as mentioned in this table, it will give you the different estimation. Recall, precision, F1 score, and everything it is there. So this is a general metric which includes everything: recall, precision, F1 score, and then others. Okay, anyway, so this is not so important, but it is actually for your understanding, for your information, that how the different performance metrics are there. Mainly I want to say precision, recall, and F1 score are the three important metrics that you can do it. Now, having this kind of, right, confusion metrics, they also closely related to our, so far accuracy estimation is also there. As you know, accuracy is TP plus TN, that means total corrected number of result divided by total number of instances being used, so P plus N. So it is actually TP plus TN divided by TP plus FP plus FN plus TN. It is actually FW measure with W1, W2, W3, W4 all equals to 1. So this is accuracy. And then error. Error also can be total number of error in prediction divided by total number of instances. So it is like this. And you can easily check that this epsilon bar is equals to 1 minus epsilon. Because they are denominator same, and then numerator is 1 complement to other. So this way it is epsilon bar is 1 complement to epsilon. Now, so those are also related to this performance estimation, also related to accuracy. And here is a very good formula, which is very right, popular formula for calculating accuracy in terms of sensitivity and specificity, right? And here P is the total number of records with positive instances, N denotes the total number of records with negative instances. So P plus N is the total number of record N, we can say, used in the testing. Now sensitivity and specificity, you can go back, then you can understand about. Here the specificity is the TNR and sensitivity is nothing but recall, right? So here the recall and specificity, it is used to calculate the accuracy, taking all other estimation, it is there. So this is also same formula, but you know the different formulation, and it gives you ultimately the same estimation, whether accuracy or performance, but in a different way actually. Now, the different performance estimation can be used to classify a classifier into 4 different categories. Here is the idea about the 4 different type of categories. One is called the perfect classifier. In case of perfect classifier, there will be no error. That is why it is called the perfect classifier. That means TPR is equals to 1, FPR is 0. FPR related to the total error, so no error. And you can check that precision, F1 score and accuracy all are equals to 1 for a perfect classifier. Okay, and this also can be readily obtained from this confusion matrix, you can do it. Similarly, the worst classifier, not a single record has been tested correctly, all are wrong. So here TPR is 0 and FPR is 1. And then precision is 0. F1 score cannot apply because there is no correct result there, so no precision, no recall, because recall plus precision equals to 0 in this case. And then accuracy is 0 also here. Now next is ultra-liberal classifier. It is like this. Whatever the record it is given you, the lazy classifier tell that it is always belong to plus class. So the chance that 50% will match like this, it is like this concept. Okay, so it is called the ultra-liberal class. So it always predict the plus class, or it always predict the negative class, vice versa. So in this case, TPR, this can be counted. So here you see there is no type 2 error and there is no correction so far the true negative is concerned. Always it predicted positive class, so type 1 error is there, and that is why precision, F1 score and accuracy that can be obtained as shown in this table. And so this is ultra-liberal classifier. And another is ultra-conservative classifier. It is just opposite to this one, right? Whatever the class it is there, you say always negative. And in that case also TPR is 0 and FPR is 0. Precision is not applicable because TP plus FP this equals to 0 in this case. F1 score is also not applicable because precision plus recall equals to 0. And then accuracy, you know, it is N by P plus N. So these are the 4 classifiers. According to the technique it is there. And then we can, for a particular classification algorithm's performance, we can see that how close it is to worst classification or ideal classification or ultra-liberal or ultra-conservative, those kind of things, it is there actually. But these are the 3-4 extreme situations that we can think about it. Now, the last topic that I am going to discuss it is ROC curve. It is actually a graphical estimation of the performance of a classifier. And more precisely, this ROC curve technique is very popular when you want to compare the classification accuracy of 2 or more classifiers together. For example, to solve a problem, you can think for SVM, you can think for Bayes-Naik classifier, you can think for decision tree based algorithm, say C4.5. And then you want to compare the performance of the 3 classifiers, and then this comparison can be shown in a graphically so that people can understand that how it works. And then this comparison actually with reference to, it is called the FPR to TPR, this kind of meshed estimation which we have learned about it. Now typically the ROC curve, it is a short form of receiver operating characteristics curve, right? Once, during the World War II, it was used in electronics engineering to analyze the radar images. Okay, so that is why the name coming from receiver operating characteristics, because radar to receive the signal and then how it is operating to report this one. So from that time only this curve is popular, and then we apply this ROC curve concept to our comparing different classification model, and this is called the ROC plot. So here, as I said, it is used for comparing two or more classifier. Not only this, ROC curve is also even powerful to estimate the classification accuracy or accuracy also. I will come to that discussion later on. Now in ROC curve, it is actually two-dimensional graph where x-axis represents FPR. This is called the false positive rate, and y-axis represents true positive rate. This is the 2PR, right? And then you know FPR and TPR, the two values are varies from 0 to 1, both inclusive. Okay, and any point xy on the plot can tell you exactly what is the FPR value and what is the TPR value for them. So if you can have for a classification model and according to this a classifier, then the x means FPR value and y means TPR value. So a point can be located in a curve. And you know this the domain of the curve, it is lying from 0, 0, that is in the coordinate of origin, to 1, 1 is the extreme diagonal, and it is like this. So typically the ROC curve look like this. So it is 0, 0, it is there, and then it is 1, 1. So total right boundary, it is right the range of this value that it can be, and different point actually the different classifier performance, TPR and FPR, and this is the x-axis FPR and TPR, it is there. Now if you change many parameters, say classification parameters, there are many classification parameters, or you can see when you test a classification technique with different test input size or training data size, then definitely their FPR and TPR will vary. Now how the FPR and TPR varies with the different input data size or test training data size or test data size, that also can be plotted in a curve, and this way a curve will come. I'll come to that discussion again here. Now so this is typically a curve, and here y, this is a point, you know it is actually FPR is 0.2 and TPR is 0.7. Now this curve also can give you a quick guessing about how a classifier is good or bad. Now you know this is C00, this is actually is a ideal, it is actually the worst classifier, because in this case FPR 0 and TPR 0. So it is actually, it is not worst, we can say ultra, it is actually, this is actually ultra conservative class. So ultra conservative class, and this is actually the ultra liberal class, and this is a worst classifier, and this become the ideal classifier because it is TPR is 0 and FPR is 1, and for this FPR is 1, TPR is 0, so it is the worst classifier. So this is the ideal classifier or best or perfect classifier. This is the worst classifier, it is ultra conservative and it is ultra liberal. So this is actually the four corners represents four different classifiers, it is there, and any point in the plot represents a particular classifier's performance or their TPR and FPR value. So this information can be readily obtained from this ROC plot curve. Now, so 4 points A, B, C, D, which I have already discussed about. Perfect classifier, the point A. B is the worst classifier. C is the ultra conservative, and D is the ultra characteristics of the ROC plot. Now let's see what is the benefit of the ROC plot that we can have it. Now what is the significance of the diagonal line? Now diagonal line, actually the idea is that if TPR is equals to the FPR, TPR and FPR is same. Now TPR and FPR is equals, it is just like a random guessing. So whenever you guess something at random, then in that case actually TPR and FPR is same, and this is again with some guessing probability that okay somebody can guess with more accuracy, somebody will be less accuracy. It is like this. So TPR is equals to FPR implies that a classifier, a TPR and FPR value lies on the diagram. This means that if a point which lies on the diagonal line and it is related to the TPR, FPR for a classifier, then we can say this classifier working as like a random classifier, or it is called the random guessing like this. Now, otherwise, there is another implication that we can have it, the goodness of a classifier. Now, if we take, this is actually the point A related to the perfect classifier. If your point very close to this A, then I can say that that classifier is very close to the perfect classifier. Now, for example, so here y is very close to A than X. So I can say that out of y and x, y is better than x. Or similarly, w and x, if it is comparable, then I can say x is better than w because x is very close to A than w. And z actually again you can say compared to x, y and z is inferior than x and y both. And this way we can have little bit assessment or understanding about the performance of a classifier following the ROC plot. And here is another idea that you can have it here. As I said once that, okay, so if you vary the different parameters which influence the performance of a classifier, for example, training data set, for example. So if you vary the training data set and then the FPR and TPR likely to be varied, and how for a classification model algorithm varying with the training data set or maybe the sample that is used in your training data set, if they are also changes, then how FPR and TPR varying, that also can be plotted using ROC plot. Now here you can see this is the one learning algorithm, say C1, and how the varying with the different influencing things for this algorithm, FPR and TPR, it is there. So for example, size is varying. So as size is increasing, so we can say the performance of the classifier is changing like this. And after some time, if it is below the diagonal line, that means it is close to the worst classifier, so it is working very poorly. So up to this point, this classifier working very good, either for different training size or balanced data or some random sample data, whatever you can think about it, and it is there C1. So this way, how a classification algorithm works with the different influencing factors, it can be also understood from the ROC plot. Further, also here you can see another classification C2. Again also we can vary the different parameters for which the classification performance varies. As you see, this C2 always gives better, of course compared to C1, but it gives the better up to this P point when the classification gives the best result. After that P point, it gives poor result. If the performance of a classification varies like this, then the parameters corresponding to the point P classification for C2 is the most preferable parameter that we can consider also. So this way we can decide the performance of a classifier, and then for which parameters the classifier giving the best result, that also can be well judged, and then we can fix the classifier for the permanent use in your solving problem. So this is the idea of the ROC card that we can think about it. And finally, the comparison. We can compare, here we can compare two classifiers. As you can see, it is easily understandable that C2 works better, C1, but not always. Similarly, C1 works better than C2, but not always. As we see, for FPR for less than equals to 0.3 value, C2 giving better result than C1, but for FPR beyond 0.3, C1 giving better result. So this is the one important characteristic, that means we can compare C1 and C2 when the different performance right, can be calculated with corresponding to the different inferencing parameter for the different algorithms. So here we can compare different classification algorithms, and that is to using ROC curve. Now here is the final plot. This plot is also very important. C1, C2, C3. If I say so, then you can undoubtedly tell that C3 is the best classifier. Then C2, and C2 is a better classifier than C1. And C1 is okay classifier because it works for you also. But again, we can calculate another estimation, what is called the area under curve. It is usually called AUC. Now, if a classifier is a perfect classifier, then AUC is called 1. What is the AUC? Area under curve. This is the curve, and if we take the whole area of this curve, right, then it is the area, and the whole area, say suppose it is 1. So AUC equals to 1 if the classifier see through it is like this. So the whole area it is actually 1. Now C1, the AUC of C1 is less than AUC of C2, and then AUC of C3 is greater than. So by calculating the area under curve, whether C1 or C2 or C3, which will give you some value, it is in between 0 to 1, both inclusive, can be considered as the estimation of a classifier. So this is the idea by which the ROC curve has its huge application to reporting the result of your machine learning algorithm. Another way also, the ROC curve is also nowadays being advocated to use for quantitative measure. As I said you, with reference to this perfect classifier, if this is your classifier at the moment giving FPR, TPR, we can calculate the distance. So this distance maybe within this circular right is the same. That means they are within the same quantitatively perform this one. So this is usually delta. So it is distance between this point to this perfect classifier for which FPR 0, TPR 1. So this is the delta formula that you can have it. So delta is in this case indicates the Euclidean distance between the perfect classifier and your target classifier. And also this estimation can be expressed in a weighted manner. Weighted manner, sometimes it is useful whenever in your application or decision making, if you want to give more weightage to FPR than TPR. If so, then take the how much weightage, say 30% weightage to FPR, 70% to TPR, and vice versa. Then this weight actually the value in between 0 and 1, you can think about it, and this is the delta W, the weighted estimation that also can be obtained from the ROC curve it is there. So if FPR and TPR is known to you, and if it is the weight that is given to you, right, for FPR is 1 minus W and TR is there, then del W can be considered is there. And if W is to 0, then it is actually FP rate calculation. If W equals to 1, it is 1 minus TPR calculation. So it is the same formula that you can think about it. Anyway, so it is actually the estimation. So far it is called the weighted estimation of a classifier, right, to decide the performance of a classification technique. Anyway, so this actually the topics for today's class, which I have covered everything that is required and that is there in the literature. You can find the discussion which I have covered in today's class from this book. The two books which is very popular, two books for machine learning techniques, learning machine learning technique. And there are few things are remaining, right, which I would like to cover, but not now. First, I would like to cover discussing the clustering technique, right? And then once it is over, then ensemble technique. The ensembling technique applicable both for classification and clustering. So I will discuss together. Anyway, so this is the portion from my. Thanks for your attention. It is actually a strenuous class for 2 hours continuously. Okay. Anyway, so if you have any question, I have already uploaded the files there, and today or tomorrow I will upload the problems for practice so that you can go through. Mainly there are many objective type question also. That is very interesting to know, and then accordingly you can write study. But before solving the problem, my advice is that go through the right slides and then learning materials, whatever you can get it from here and there, and then study it and then apply it. Okay, so learn it. So yeah, do you have any question?
Sir, I have a small question.
Sure, please.
Can you name any situation